Hey, real quick before we get into this video, this tournament was live streamed on my Twitch and YouTube last night with the help of the Luffy TV doing commentary with me. And I just want to say I really do appreciate him doing that with me. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. It's going to be linked in the description for the VODs for it, and it's going to be re-uploaded here on YouTube in the next couple days as well. So thank you guys for making these tournaments really awesome. Make sure to be on the lookout for the next ones on my socials, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the Zulu Games Star Deck 10 box tournament that I hosted with them last night. It was a really fun time, and it was my first foray into the Star Deck 10 meta. I know a lot of you guys are kind of wanting to play the new starter deck, and we have some treasure cups upcoming this weekend, so I kind of wanted to have again a tournament to go over this meta before we have the large events as well. And real quick before we get started, again, thank you to Zulus for the support for this tournament, but also if you guys want to see the live stream of it, is on my Twitch and on my YouTube, and will be re-uploaded to here on YouTube in the next couple days as well if you guys want to see it. Also, all of these deck lists are going to be on my website, which is linked below, as well as pretty much every other large OPO4 event that's happened in the last couple of weeks as well. So really good resource. Make sure to check it out, and I really do appreciate the support on here and just everywhere else in the last couple of weeks as well. So this was a 64-player tournament. It was 6 rounds of Swiss, and again, it was on here. And again, new restriction list with also the Star Deck 10 legal for, again, the new events that we have in the next couple of weeks. And for this event, we had 4 Charlotte Katakuri, with one of them taking the event, 3 of the OPO1 Law, 3 of the new Luffy, 2 of the old Eustass Captain Kidd, 1 of the blue Crocodile, 1 of the new Trafalgar Law, 1 Kaido, and 1 Donquixote Doflamingo. So honestly, pretty diverse for what it is. This is kind of more of a large locals, if you really want to think about it this way. It was 64 players in 6 rounds, so it does get, good amount of variation and decks, so there is a lot for there too. And if we look at the leader breakdown as well, we do see a lot of people are on Katakuri, just over a quarter. A good amount of people trying out the new Luffy and the new Law as well, and then a good amount of just kind of the other stuff that we generally see in this format. So I do think Luffy and Law are the 2 ones that people are really interested in. Law is really tricky. We'll talk about more when we go to that list too, but honestly, I think Katakuri is doing well still just because of the numbers of people who are on the deck, but it's also just a really good deck and worth people being, using it as well. It is just that kind of casino, mentality that means, if 17 people are playing it, one person's probably going to get, the best cards every time. So that's kind of the mentality I see a lot for this deck, and I think it works well enough. But I also don't think Katakuri is a deck that is overwhelming the meta right now. But we'll kind of see what that looks like in the next couple weeks still. So, anyways, we're gonna go over the top placing list for each one of these leaders, starting off with our first place list. So this is Eric's list here of the Charlotte Katakuri, and it's pretty much what we've been seeing. There's not a lot of variation for this deck. We obviously got a good amount of cards for OPO3 since Yellow got introduced. We got a couple of support cards with the introduction of OPO4, and that's really it. This is just has been solid for a long time. We get more good triggers in the life, and honestly, nothing too wild of a build for what we've been seeing. I think Katakuri's pretty good, and this one's a little bit more on the high end for a little bit of the greed for 2 of the 7 drops, 2 of the 8 drops, 2 of the Yamatos, and 4 of the 10 drop Linlins as well. So honestly, I would also say that I think tempo is really important in the game right now, and I think Charlotte Katakuri getting to the 10 drop is great. But honestly, from what I've seen, sometimes you don't even have time to play it. It's not even, or it's either you have better plays or you lose if you play it. So I don't know. I think 10 drop's a problem, but I haven't really seen it as super oppressive in a lot of matchups in this format. But I'm sure you guys will have your own experiences. Let me know in the comments below. But honestly, I think Katakuri is a good deck, but I don't think it's overwhelmingly good for where it's at, and I think it's kind of fine. But again, you guys can let me know your own comments below. Then we also have our Trafalgar Laws. So we have Adrian's list and Nuno's list as well, and they're both different lists, which is why we're going over both of them. And they both went X1 for this event. So we do have the list. I think these are backwards. Are these backwards? No, they're not. Yeah, they're backwards. These are backwards. This is Adrian's build, because Adrian, you have to know, they always run the 2 of Eau Rouge and also the Yamato, which is really cool. We did have a match on here. This Yamato did a lot of work. It was really good pressure in the matchups that it has. And if you play against yellow, being able to have banish on a card is really impactful as well. So I think it's a nice little tech that you can jump into. The Wano package means that you can play the Momo, being able to find Otama off Momo feels really great. We have the Izo as well, which is Wano, so you're able to find Momo off that. And just kind of like a bunch of kind of weird little half synergies with this deck too. So I think that's important. We also aren't running the restand law, which kind of makes sense since I guess we have less of like high end of our supernovas specifically. No copies of Rush Thor, only one copy of the Luffy. And just Adrian usually has kind of a more unique build most of the time when they top, and it's really cool to see this one here. And then also we have Nuno, which I would say is more of the standard version of the Whitebeard Pirates of Trafalgar Law. Just the fact that like Thatch has been a good card that people have discovered is, not too bad for applying pressure, becoming 5k very easily, having a, Fossa blocker that's searchable, being able to have the Haruta and just the Vista as well to help you get into those ranges. So honestly, I think this deck is pretty good in its own right too. I think the Wano Country seems like a little bit more fun, but I think the Whitebeard version has been a little bit more consistent as I've been seeing it, and that's kind of like the two builds here. So congratulations to Adrian and Nuno for their finishes there. And then next up we have our starter deck 10 builds here of Monkey D. Luffy. So we have Dakota's build here and Alex Kim's here list here, which both lists did go X1 for this event. So for the build here for Dakota, it's running like a really interesting like film engine back where we have like the Fiesta, which lets us find the Beppo and the Shiki. So like a 1-drop that finds other 2Ks is kind of neat, but also kind of helps our high end, which includes like the 4-drop Uta, 2 of the Guild Tessera for more card draw, and the 1 of Film Uta. So I think this was, a bit of a weird tech, but it is nice to help you have like another version of Newgate in a lot of ways, or another copy of Eustass Captain Kidd, which also lets you, gain that additional plus 1k. It is -2, which is a little bit expensive at times, but not too terribly so. We do also have like the Guild, which I do think like Luffy does have a lot of issues with not having enough cards in hand, so being able to use that is nice. Our top end is the Newgate. We have the 9-drop Kaido. We have the 10-drop Luffy as well, and just the other kind of pieces. So it is interesting to see this kind of film piece, but being able to like find a blocker off of it if you really need to is really nice. And I think like I want to experiment more with the 8-drop Uta myself. I think that could be really strong too. So anyways, this is the list for Dakota. Congratulations for their finish there. And then we also have again Alex's build, and I would say this one's like a little bit more standard, looking for what I've been seeing for the last couple of weeks. Nothing too wild with it, but being able to have a good amount of 2Ks, having the blockers. I think Wire as a blocker has just gone better over time. It's been very, very strong in a lot of builds. And since Purple generically likes to run like a really greedy top end and have a lot of cards you want to run without counter, being able to get that cycle for free essentially is really nice for you. And then other than that, just kind of the pieces that we've been seeing. We have the Missile Sunday, which I like, but is terrible in the mirror match. We have the Eustass Captain Kidd as well. We have a 1 copy of Shanks for some pressure late game, and then our regular stuff. So Ulti Mortar is kind of nice too, as a countered 2, and then one of your leaders gets 1 or +2 for the battle and gets draw cards. So being able to be a 2K for 1 that lets you cycle, and the Dawn -2 isn't terrible of an effect for you. And then just kind of like the generic good like red and purple stuff. So Chopper is still like a really good 1-drop blocker, and I don't think purple has any 1-drop blockers in the game right now either. So being able to just tech this in and just like a cheap blocker to help us absorb damage, I think is good in its own right too. So this is Alex's Kim's deck, who again got an X1 finish. Next up we do have the starter deck Crocodile, and it's been pretty much cooking for the last little bit. I think it is pretty strong for what it is. We do have the 6-drop promo Trafalgar Law in this build, and I've been seeing this pop up a little bit here and there in the last little bit. As on play, if your opponent has 6 or more cards in their hand, add 1 of your opponent's life cards to their hand. So being able to do that is quite strong. It lets you just kind of like snipe damage, especially against yellow, which kind of has like a medium-sized hand anyways late game. It is a little bit clunky in hand as a 6/7 without any counter, but also when you establish it on board, it feels pretty good. And I think it can be like a good way to like do 1 more piece of damage when your opponent's not always expecting it, and getting that kind of tempo early, which is kind of cool. So other than that, we have like the Zeph, which I do like Zeph, and I was talking to Risu as well. He really does like Zeph in the builds for Crocodile, being able to use this to bounce these back to hand, and like it's just like tempo. It's like good tempo. There's a lot of good decks that like to have like a 3-drop out, so this kind of disrupts a lot of them, which is nice. And then the Soga King and just kind of the other pieces that we're seeing. So not a lot of variety, I feel like, outside of like, we run Pacifista for Star Deck Croc more times than not. We need that kind of engine for something for this deck. And then we get to run this kind of greedy top end and just really good removal cards as well. So this is a list here for Philip, and congratulations for their top 16 there. The next up we have our Eustass Captain Kids. So we had 2 of them. They're both pretty similar, but they were placed right next to each other. So we have Alex's list as well as Warren Zhang's list, and not, again, fundamentally too different from the 2 of them. A lot of them are running the film package, and then we kind of have the 10-drop Dofi as the top end, which is a really good card. It's just not searchable in this deck, and doubly so when our Namis bottom deck them. They feel really bad if you need to find one. But other than that, I think that's fair. We also do have like, a good amount of like supernova stuff. So we have 4 Bonnies, which helps us find some of our top end, and like the X Drake, which I really like in the build right now. I think that's very strong for you. So we're seeing it in both. And then also like the Bart is another supernova. I know the card is expensive at times, but it does help you get some consistency. The fact that this card is super duper searchable means you're not going to whiff as much, which is really nice, and can help you like, feel confident to attack with your Luffy, and then you get it back, which is cool too. So this is both their builds are kind of what we've been seeing for the last little bit, but congratulations to both Alex and Warren for their finishes. Next up, we have our starter deck, Trafalgar Law, and this is a really interesting and weird deck in general, and just kind of how this deck is supposed to work in the first place. It has a lot of like, using the effect of the leader to get like the Dawn -3 to place up to one of your opponent's characters -3 to the bottom of their deck, and then you can play a 4 cost or less. It's just like, it's a strong effect. It's very costly. Like Dawn -3 costs a lot, but when you have a deck built around it, it's very good. I do think this deck gets better with the release of the next set, but there are like a lot of like neat little synergies you get. This build too is just kind of wild and a little bit all over the place. Like we have like the Utas and the Guild. We don't have any of like the film searchers though, and it's just like in a really interesting spot for it. So you have like your 4 drops that you want to play, like your Sachi and Penguin, as well as your Beppo and Jean Bart to help you get that additional Dawn back for using the effect. We have a lot of ways to give stuff minus power, including with Brook and with the Jinbei, which also is a 2k counter. The Gordon, which is, unfortunately a little bit expensive, is pretty much a staple for this deck right now, just because it gives something -3, which means that it's really easy to use this and your Trafalgar Law to get something rid of 6k or less, which is a pretty good stat point. And then and again, like this is a bit of a pile of a deck, but you kind of have to do that for how this leader works and how the deck works in the first place. You have to have like a lot of options to interact with your opponent and kind of get some one-ups on there too. So not much more to say for this one, but congratulations to Lazarus for their finish here. And then next up we have our starter deck, Kaido. So Purple has been doing really great with these new support. Obviously we got a lot of good cards, and we've seen them pretty much all of them, where it's the 4-drop Trafalgar Law as well as the 7-drop Eustass Captain Kid. I think these are just kind of ways to give more life to Purple decks. Traditionally, I think they've been in Magellan more than Kaido. I think Magellan's been the more popular of the 2 leaders, but I think Kaido's been around for a while in the fact that it's always been kind of good. And like if you're able to play your curve correctly, there's a lot of decks that it's able to beat. But that consistency is such a big factor from this deck when you don't have 1-drop searchers, and we're again kind of inclined to run so many heavy end cards like our Kaidos, like our 9-drop and 10-drop. But I do think this deck does have legs, and it can interact with your opponent. You have to just find your pieces in the right time, and you're really just like dependent on finding Onigashima on turn 2, and if you don't, you're set back so far behind, it feels like. So that's kind of like my thoughts was a bit to the deck. It's really just lived and died on this card, finding, like playing it on curve. But if you're able to do that, you have a really good shot against a lot of decks, I feel, in the format. So, but this is Giovanni's list. Congratulations for their top 16 there. And to wrap it up, we do have the Donquixote Doflamingo, and this is, if not the exact, I think it's like pretty close, if not the same exact list that won the Top Cut Treasure Cup this past weekend. So we know that this kind of has been transitioning to more of the aggressive build. The 10-drop Donquixote Doflamingo is not as used, and in this case not used at all, but to be more of a spammy, like just play a bunch of like good statted bodies and attack as often as you can. So kind of like, we have our Usopps, we have our Namis, we have our Bakurats, which can all be played off the Brook, which is a really good turn 2 play, or like the combo of Luffy into Brook into one of these three has always been quite good as well. We get some Utas for blocking Queen because we don't want, Guild's a little bit too slow for what we're trying to accomplish. A good amount of events, including the three sword style Onigiri, which is able to play either the Usopp or Bakurat for free, as well as being a good defense card, as well as being a good card with a, as a trigger in your life. So I kind of like this kind of build more, and I think it fits this meta a little bit more for what we're seeing, and I think it's a good choice too. So this is the list that Michael ran for this event, and that's going to be it for this video. So I hope you guys did appreciate it. It was a lot of fun to running a tournament for the pre-Star Deck 10 that we're going to get. We do have a couple treasure cups this upcoming weekend, which should show what this meta looks like for us as a larger scale, which is again pretty unique because of the restriction list that we had and Japan didn't during the same time period. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you again to the Zulus for sponsoring this event and also just like working with it, and I really do appreciate it, as well as Luffy TV for being my co-commentator for the event as well. So make sure to send a follow their way. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all next time.